Good morning, everybody. It's Ben Jones here from Baddorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters, hanging out in my workshop on this last day of April. It's the 30th. It's a Friday. It was the last 30 days, September, April, June. Yeah, last day of April. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we've had a string of really nice weather, which, if you're from the Northwest, you know that means it's time to get excited for summer and then to be disappointed when the rain comes back and we get second spring after having first false summer. I'm not complaining because I love the change of season, change of weather. But what I do want to be ready for once second spring ends, I want to be ready for some iced coffee. My preference is always for a good cup, a good mug full of hot coffee. But there are also some times when I just want to have a nice, ice cold, tasty, chilly cold drink. So, we're going to look at a couple different things here. The first thing I want to address is the difference between cold brew, iced coffee, and flash brewed coffee. They're all going to be, iced drinks. The most common word you hear tossed around right now is cold brew. Cold brew is specifically coffee that's brewed at a low temperature. Typically, it's just at room temperature, and that's where you would just grind up some coffee nice and coarse, put it into a container, mix in a bunch of room temperature water, and let that sit for 8, 12, 24, sometimes even 36 hours. Some put it in the fridge, which is great because that inhibits bacteria growth. Some leave it out, which is fine if you're taking care of your equipment. If you're at home and you want to do cold brew, your best friend is going to be the French press because you can just leave everything steeping in here. You treat it just like a regular French press, just extend out the brew time. We'll talk more about that on another video. And then there's iced coffee, which is just kind of a generic term for any type of cold coffee. But in the coffee realm specifically, if you work in the industry, when I hear iced coffee, I think of coffee that was brewed hot in the traditional way, lost temperature over time, and then was put into the refrigerator. I'm not saying that every iced coffee is that, but that's what it used to be. That was kind of the classic way of extending the usefulness of brewed coffee. And then there's something called flash brewed. And this goes by another name. Some people call it the Japanese iced coffee method. There was a coffee fellow who traveled to Japan, saw this method, and when he brought it back to the US, he called it the Japanese method. I just always called it flash brewed. So anyway, let me demonstrate. So my preference is for flash brewed coffee. I like to brew it hot and then chill it out right away. The best thing we can do for that, in my opinion, is an AeroPress. I know this is becoming the AeroPress show. It's just such a versatile brewer. There are a couple schools of thought with how we're going to do any of these flash brewed coffees. One is toss everything on your scale, and you want to divide your brew water, take some of that from hopping hot water and transition it into being ice. So what proponents of that method would do is they would put their vessel on their scale, and then they would, pardon my fingers, they would start weighing out the ice. And if we normally brew 300 grams of water, they would put about 50% in as ice. There's some reasons for that, and that's fine. If you're going for incredible precision of your iced coffee, of your flash brew, that's a great way to do it. But if all you want is a good cup of iced coffee, I'm just going to take it and just put a bunch in there. Fill up your thing. In fact, I'm going to take this, and I've got this fun cup. I'm going to put all my ice here into my little, there we go. Now what happens is, when you then brew on top of this, the hot coffee coming out of the AeroPress is gonna just melt the ice, and we're gonna be fine and good. So here's how that looks. Put that on top. I have some coffee, and we're doing just regular standard AeroPress recipe. Nothing special, no major shifts. I think this is funny because I opted to not use my AeroPress funnel to pour that in, and naturally I spilled some coffee because, well, because grinder bins are not designed for pouring coffee. All right, so AeroPress is in. My water is nice and hot still. I'm just going to go ahead and add that. Catch some of the aroma coming up. Make sure we get everything nice and wet. We want all the bits participating in there. And then insert my plunger. So now what we have is, there we are. You can see some of the coffee started to come through and it melted. Got the timer running. I'm just gonna set this aside. While that brews, I'm gonna go ahead and use the bee house dripper, because I also want to show that you can do this without an AeroPress. So same thing, we'll take some type of container. If you have like a big pint glasses are great. I'm gonna make a little ASMR. There we go. All right, so pardon the hands. I wouldn't, of course, use my hands if this was a cafe or making coffee for somebody. All right. So I have a whole bunch of ice. I have my brewer on top, and I went ahead and weighed out 19 grams of coffee. I'm just gonna put that in. I'm keeping my coffee dose the same, but I made a change. I'm not gonna use nearly as much water to brew with, so I have to shrink my grind size. I had to take it from my drip and bring it down just a little bit finer, because I won't have as much water going through to aid in extraction. So I have to do a little finer grind in order to accommodate that. All right, so normal water dose for 19 grams, multiply 19 by 7.5, or sorry, by 17, and we get 326. So, I usually do roughly 300 grams. It fits into my mug really well. I'm gonna cut that in half and go between 150 to, kind of 165. Got a little bloom, and then we're just gonna just slowly keep adding. The technique is the same. We just want to be a little bit slower than we might have been on a normal pour over. Because we're not going to have nearly as much water passing through this. So I really want to kind of extend my brew time by pouring more slowly and gently. This is where a pour kettle does come in handy. I'm at 107 grams of water, and you can see, and if you can't see, you can imagine, see with your mind's eye, that as that hot coffee drips out of my bee house, lands on the ice, it'll melt. I'm just shy of 150 grams. I'm just going to bring a little bit more up. Excellent. We're 167. I'll stop right there. I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to set that aside. Let that continue to drip through. I don't need my scale because I'm going to be pressing. And one thing you never want to do, you never want to AeroPress on top of a scale. All right, now this is kind of fun. When I apply pressure and we start filtering that out, we get, so what I have is I have an incredibly strong brew coming out of the AeroPress, diluting directly into my cup as that ice melts. And here I have a delicious little iced coffee. Fantastic. That's cup number 1. For cup number 2, we have the Bee House. Same thing happened. The iced coffee, or the hot coffee came in, melted the ice, and because I only let half as much water pass through, using finer grind to get nice full extraction, then I have a little mug of some iced coffee there as well. So that's how I like to make my cold coffee during first summer, second summer, hot summer, whatever season we're going to be calling it in the Northwest. Some of the reasons I really enjoy this method, the first is that I don't always have the foresight to brew, cold brew, 8 to 12 hours before. So I'm not always going to have that sitting in my kitchen just waiting for me. The other thing is that personally, I'm not a fan of cold brew. I actually can't really drink it. The way the caffeine interacts with me with cold brew, it's not pretty. That really long steep pulls something out that my body just doesn't like. And I get the jitters. This nice flash brewed, this is great. And one of the reasons that I prefer this to just doing cold coffee is that I like the flavor of this better. This retains some more of the liveliness and acidity, so if you have a really fun, bright coffee or a natural coffee, it's really going to hold up and it's going to be delicious. If you're wondering what types of coffees work best with this, you can do any coffee as a flash brewed. I tend to really like coffees out of Ethiopia, coffees out of Colombia. Those two tend to be a little bit more lively and acidic, a little zippy, more floral tones. We're actually putting out on Monday, we'll be releasing this really neat, fun, natural Colombian coffee that I cannot wait to taste. La Illusion as a cold brew, or as a flash brew. They're customized there. So there you have it. And of course, from here, you can doctor these up however you want. You can add a little bit of flavoring if you want to. A little touch of cold milk can add some creaminess, and the milk can kind of enhance and change some of the flavor. But that is how I do my summertime cold coffees. Naturally, whichever you enjoy is what, that's the right answer. So thanks for joining me. If you need any coffees, check out batdorfcoffee.com. We've got quite a few. And again, something fun coming out on Monday. So take care. See you later.